more than 30 years ago, a commercial airplane vanished from radar and was later discovered, shattered, deep within a remote mountain forest. There were no survivors, not a single one. In the chaos that followed, 7 rescue volunteers were among the first to arrive. They weren't soldiers. They weren't trained professionals. Just local men, brave, stubborn, and driven by a simple goal: to bring the bodies home. They set off into the jungle during a torrential downpour. Rain whipped their faces. Mud swallowed their boots. Every step deeper into the forest felt like stepping into the unknown. Hours later, they reached the wreckage. Twisted metal, scorched luggage, bodies, some whole, some not. It was a scene from a nightmare. The smell of fuel and blood lingered in the air. Thunder rumbled in the distance as the team worked in silence, recovering remains. Some wept quietly, others focused on the task. Then, just as they gathered together to tally the dead, a scream, sharp, human, from the other side of the crash site. The men froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Because that scream wasn't supposed to exist. That scream, it sounded too real to ignore. Convinced someone had survived, 4 of the 7 men grabbed their torches and took off, crossing the wreckage deeper into the dark. The others waited in silence. Only the rain spoke. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, 2 men came running back, pale, trembling, eyes wide with terror. They said they'd seen him, a man, drenched in blood, missing one arm, waving at them for help from the shadows. But before they could reach him, he ran straight into the trees. The men gave chase, calling out, begging him to stop. But the forest swallowed him whole. No footprints, no signs, nothing. The group debated searching again, but the rain had turned violent. The sun was gone. The storm had taken over. So they made camp by the crash site, huddling in a single tent, trying to sleep through the sound of thunder. And then, it came again. A second scream. But this time, it wasn't a call for help. It was something else. Angrier, closer, and not quite human. Night fell heavy over the wreckage. The storm eased, but the air remained thick. Too thick. The kind of stillness that makes your skin itch. The 7 men agreed to take turns keeping watch, in case anyone, or anything, came back. Around 3 a.m., one man stood guard near a small hill beside the shattered fuselage. That's when he saw it. Movement, just beyond the hill. A silhouette. Not walking, not running, just standing, still, watching, torch in hand. The man stepped forward. Each foot sunk into the soft earth. But he kept going. Then he found him. A body, half buried in the mud. Face down. The uniform, foreign. One arm missing. Exactly like the 2 men had described. But this wasn't someone who died in the crash. It was as if he'd been placed there, laid carefully, facing the camp, like he had been waiting to be found. And just as the man turned to call for help, he looked up. The shadow was gone. Years had passed since the crash. The forest, over time, grew over the wreckage, but it never truly healed. Locals stayed away, except one couple, a husband and wife, foraging for mushrooms in the dead of night. They had a rule: never call each other by name in the woods. They believed it protected them from things that listened. That night, the wife trailed behind her husband, head low, basket swaying in her hand. She paused, then glanced up. He was ahead, or so she thought. She called out, not by name, just a soft whistle. He turned slightly, didn't speak, then walked deeper into the trees. She followed, quiet, step by step, but something felt off. He was taller, his steps floated, and when she called again, he didn't answer. She hurried. The trees thinned, and she found herself standing before a man in white, tall, rigid, and terribly wrong. He wore a buttoned shirt, but his arms were too long. His eyes hung low from his face, like they'd melted out of his skull. They dangled over his cheeks, swinging gently. He stared at her, both his mouths opened. He whispered something, a language she'd never heard. Something broken, ancient, wet, and then black. She collapsed into the moss. When she woke, it was morning, and her husband was still searching for her. But she never spoke the same again. Decades had passed. Time blurred the old stories. The crash became rumor. The ghost became a joke. But the forest remembered. One humid night, 5 friends, reckless, loud, full of beer and bravado, took their motorbikes up the hill. They weren't there for ghosts. They were after something else. Frog eggs. A strange craving, sure, but it wasn't uncommon. Locals swore the best ones were found in the ponds near the third hill, the very same hill where the plane had gone down. They didn't care. They just laughed, revved their engines, and rode up into the dark. The trail narrowed. The trees thickened. Frogs croaked in the distance. Then, their headlights caught something. A figure, standing in the middle of the dirt road. A man, still, dressed in white, glaring through the beams. They froze. Duri Kraiwa. One of them shouted. The man didn't answer. He just turned and sprinted into the forest. Without thinking, they followed. Motorbikes left behind. Laughter faded. Only footsteps and breath now. The trees closed in. And then, the voices began. Whispers, in the wind, from behind, from ahead, from inside their ears. Help me. Over here. You shouldn't be here. The forest around them warped. Shadows moved against no light. Frog eggs forgotten. Jokes gone silent. They weren't alone. And something was calling them deeper. The deeper they went, the louder it got. Whispers, like wind through broken teeth. Footsteps, too fast to be human, zigzagging between the trees. It felt like they were being herded. Then, the woods fell silent. No wind, no frogs, no breath. And that's when they heard it, right beside them. Help me, a whisper, not from a person, but from the trees. Details. Panic surged through the group. One of the friends turned to flee, but froze. He was there, the man in white, standing at the edge of the forest trail, right where the path home began, arms limp at his sides, face unreadable, eyes missing. The friend pointed, screamed, "Ghost! It's a ghost!" The others turned. He didn't move. He didn't need to. They didn't wait. They jumped on their bikes, engines roaring to life, mud flying as they bolted downhill. Branches clawed at them. The trail was tighter than they remembered, too tight, and behind them, it followed, the voice, in the wind, in their ears. Help me, over and over and over, until they passed the last tree, the edge of the forest. Silence. The voice vanished, but none of them ever looked back. Some things in the forest don't hide. They watch, from the moment you step in until the moment you leave. But if you look too long, they follow. A boy and his grandmother entered the forest just after noon. They were mushroom hunters, locals who knew every path, every clearing. This time, they went deeper, into Zone 3, where the plane had crashed decades ago. It was his first time going that far in. As they crossed into the clearing, he noticed something strange. Silence. No birds, no wind, not even the buzzing of flies. The world had gone still. And then he heard it. A single bird call, high-pitched, echoing, not melodic, more like a broken whistle. He looked up and froze. On a thick branch above the wreckage sat a bird. Huge, feathers dark brown, tinged red, but it had two heads. One faced the sky, singing. The other faced him. Its black, beady eyes stared straight into his soul. It didn't blink. He nudged his grandmother. "Grandma, there's a bird up there." But she didn't respond. Too busy gathering mushrooms. He tried to ignore it, tried to look away, but every few steps, it moved. Tree to tree, branch to branch, silently trailing them. No rustle, no flutter of wings. It was always there, always staring. By the time they left the clearing, he glanced one last time. The branch was empty, but he could still feel it, watching from somewhere behind the trees. And the next night, he heard the whistle again. Outside his window, some enter the forest for greed, others for survival. But no matter the reason, the forest always takes something in return. His name was Uncle Tuan, a charcoal maker. He'd been cutting wood his whole life, but what he did was illegal, so he worked at night, with only the moonlight to guide him. That night, he brought his nephew, a quiet boy, barely 16. They parked the cart at the forest edge, carried their axes in silence. They walked deep, past the safe zones, into Zone 3, where the soil still smelled faintly of jet fuel. They found a dead tree, dry, tall, perfect. Uncle Tuan raised his axe. Thud, wood splintered. Thud, again, then giggles, high-pitched, childlike. Above him, he stopped, looked up, nothing. Suddenly, thwack, a hard fruit smacked him in the back. Then another, then another. He spun around. "Kid, don't play dumb." No reply. He called again. No answer. He turned back to the tree. And that's when it happened. Something dropped from the canopy, right in front of him. Not a fruit, not a branch, a head, a human head, eyes wide open, mouth twisted into a smile, hair soaked in blood. It landed in the mud with a sickening plop. Uncle Tuan didn't scream, didn't speak. He just ran. He ran past the trees, past the cart, all the way home. He never looked back. And his nephew? He found him already waiting at the cart, shaking, silent. Some ghost scare, others warn. But this one, he's been calling for help for over 30 years, and no one's ever really listened. Every witness, from the volunteers at the crash site, to the mushroom hunters, to the reckless boys chasing frog eggs, describe the same figure. A tall man, dressed in white, one arm missing, his eyes not in their sockets, but dangling, swinging gently from his cheeks, and from his mouth, always the same words, "Help me, help me." He appears at the edge of the trees, sometimes standing still, sometimes running just out of reach, but never touching, never attacking, because he isn't trying to harm. He's trying to be found. The truth, they say, is that he wasn't just a victim in the crash. He was overlooked, left behind when the bodies were recovered, his soul anchored to that spot, crying for rescue. For decades, they say if you stop and truly listen, not with fear, but with empathy, you might just hear more than a ghost. You might hear a man, still begging to be saved. And until someone hears him completely, he'll never leave those woods. Some stories end when the telling stops. Others wait in silence, until someone dares to speak them aloud again. And sometimes, they speak back. Telephone receiver details. Late one night, Jack, the one who shared every chilling detail of the crash, the forest, and the man in white, receives a call. It's from one of the original 7 volunteers. His voice is shaking. He's crying. "Jack, I heard it again." The same voice, same place. It said, "I warned you. Stay out. Tell no one." The phone line went dead after that. No goodbye, just static and silence. Jack sits there, alone, processing the words, the weight of the stories he's told, the lives they touched, the ones they disturbed. And then, he says this: some stories don't want to be told. They're meant to fade, like ashes in the wind. But sometimes, they demand to be heard. He looks into the camera, and if you've been listening, you've already heard too much.